Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Evan Tzivanakis, and I probably pronounced that wrong, sorry. And we're going to be talking about feedback, something we've never talked about on here. What is good feedback? What is bad feedback? What's the best practice for doing it? So where can people find you?
Well, online or offline? Online, you can find me on LinkedIn, which I'm quite active. So if you type my name, you did pronounce my surname right, wrong, but no, no hard feelings. I get it so often.
Well, I get mine pronounced wrong. So tell me. So tell us how you pronounce it.
Zivanakis.
There you go. It's easy, isn't it, when you know how?
It is easy as long as you pronounce it a few times, and but it's not so easy, TZ. So it's like the TZ becomes a G, so
Right.
Givanakis or Zivanakis. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. Is by far my more my best social media platform for me. I love it. I post, I comment, I absolutely love it. So if you type my name Tzivanakis, I will come up. Or if you are, I'm currently in Hamburg. If you are around, drop me a message and we'll meet up for coffee in North Germany. Just make sure you wear a heavy jacket though, because yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So tell us. I was always told, with feedback, uh, it's always a difficult thing to do. And so you always have to. It's great when you're giving people good feedback, like they've got a pay rise or something like that. But when you get giving people bad feedback, it's always a difficult conversation. So tell us what we should be doing.
Yeah, look, first of all, let's make it clear, right, that I am not an HR person. I do not come from an HR background. I was a practitioner, so I was in sales. I became a sales manager. I became a training manager. I became a director. I became an L&D manager. So I suppose I come from a practitioner's background. I received feedback as an employee. I gave and I'm giving feedback as a manager. So it's not easy because a lot of managers actually are not trained how to give feedback. And when we receive not so positive feedback as humans, we bring up an invisible shield. We're putting down the shutters, and especially, team, in some cultures, more than others, towards Asia maybe. You need to be careful because people tend to take things personally. I mean, we all do, but I've
I,
noticed
I
with my
think if we get
experience.
feedback, I think if we get feedback, we take it personally anyway. I think that's the thing that you have to assume, isn't it? Because quite often what you're doing is you're what maybe criticizing is too a strong a word, but you may be um, you're saying somebody isn't doing something right, probably. And for most people, their thought process is that they're always right.
So just to make it clear, we are talking about manager-employee feedback, right? This is the kind of in a work environment. So yes, and what feedback. First of all, for me, what feedback is not. You touched upon a little bit. Feedback is not criticism, and this is how I think we should all do it as a giver or as a receiver. What I mean is not about finding fault or assigning blame. Criticism is about pointing out what's wrong and often feels like a personal attack. So I think the first thing that you should do is separate the person from the subject. Like,
Right.
team, it's critical, and you have to say, team, I'm about to give you some feedback about your work, or about you being late for a few times, days, or your numbers. I'm not, your sales numbers are not what they're supposed to be, but please, I'm giving you feedback on your work, not on you as a person.
Right.
So you need to make that clear from the beginning.
Mm.
So feedback is not criticism. For example, you know if I tell you, Tim, you messed this up again, you messed things up. This is criticism. But if I tell you, look, Tim, with a kind of empathy and the correct facial expressions, if I tell you, Tim, look, this report really needs more clarity in the analysis section. So let's focus on refining that. Let's sit down together and see how we can improve that. That is feedback. Compared to Tim, oh my God, man, you messed things up again.
Yes, yeah, because at that point you're making it, it's then about them. So the thing I was always told about feedback was in leadership, you're told there's this thing called the shit sandwich.
Yes.
Which is where you say something good, you say something bad, and then you say something good. And the thing is, because so many people know this, when you go through that process, they know exactly what's happening.
I used to do it a lot. And when I was in the UK, I was in Bristol. My first managerial role was in Bristol, 25 years old. I moved on from Leeds because I got promoted. And this is what I got trained to do. We used to call it plus minus plus.
Okay.
So, I mean, exactly as you said, people now expect it and you know what you're going to say. But on the opposite side, I said that for me, right, in my opinion, feedback is not criticism. Feedback is also not praising. Like, praise is often well intentioned, right? But doesn't drive growth. You know, team, good job. You know, I'm not telling you what you did well or how you can keep improving. So, Tim, I appreciate the effort, really good work, but what specific actions made this a success? And then I'm giving you feedback while with a question. So I'm giving you the opportunity to reflect. So you are answering your own questions. You are training yourself. You are feedbacking yourself. So I'm not focusing on the result. I'm praising the result, but I want to learn the process. And if you're a smart manager, what you could do, use Team as an example to spread the process around so you create momentum.
So rather than making it's a motive about the individual, what you're doing is that you're getting them to come up with their own solution. Because the other thing about leadership and coaching that you're always told is that the person will actually come up with this, or you should be asking the person to come up with a solution themselves.
If needed, yes. But praising, when you praise somebody, it's kind of surface level. Feedback is a tool for improvement. Improvement of the person or improvement of everyone. So if you tell me, look, yeah, that's how I did it. I called the client 5 times. I followed up email. I never missed the deadline with the client. I've asked 5 times for the tip. So now I know the process and I can use that as an example to spread it around the office to create positive momentum. So yes, I'm praising the result. Good job. Get more commission, get a weekend off, whatever. But then I suggest if you're listening to this, follow up with a question to understand the process.
So what else can we do in terms of using our or being more emotionally intelligent?
In regards to feedback,
Yeah.
you are below a takeoff or a landing strip, right? I can see at the plane.
Heathrow, yes.
Yes, you are right. You are not on Myrtle Avenue, aren't you? That's the
No,
close.
no. We've got tire marks on the roof of the house.
You do?
Yeah.
Right, there you go. So no, yeah. Yeah, please understand that also that feedback is not a once in a year thing. It's not like every every month, every 3 months or a year. So the annual performance review is not feedback. That's retrospective evaluation. So to answer your question, true feedback is ongoing, integrated into day-to-day operations. So whenever you spot it, you need to do it. It's a little bit like as a manager, how do you manage conflict? Some managers avoid conflict, and that can be dangerous because you might have having people resigning because they fight. So if you spot it, you can do it there and then. Don't delay, don't procrastinate it. So it is a really case by case, and if, for example, if an employee misses a deadline, are you going to wait until the quarterly review to address it? I suggest you give immediately feedback. Tim, I've noticed the deadline wasn't met. Let's talk about what happened. Are you okay?
The advice I've always been given is to give feedback timely. And if you don't, what happens quite often, if you've got conflict, what happens then is the conflict festers and gets worse, because quite often people then go around and get all their mates and ganging up on people, and you have to
Exactly.
deal with it there and then. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, and I think the best time to solve conflict or to give feedback is as soon as you spotted it.
Yeah.
Don't delay it because it can escalate. So for me, feedback is about. So we said it's not criticism, it's not praise, it's not a once in a year thing. So what is it? It's communication about how someone's actions or behavior impact the outcome of their work. So this is how I would define feedback. Okay, it's a two-way thing. Imagine it's like setting up a mirror, up to a person's work and showing them exactly what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. And you are the manager, you should be the one defining the standards and telling people what you expect. So what is not working, what is working, and what needs to change. And then you said, maybe the person needs training, you set deadlines, milestones, and all that. And the key here is clarity and actionability, because feedback is actionable or should be actionable. It's not just a critique or a compliment. And some people misunderstand that. If you give a compliment, I'm giving feedback for your work, but I gave you feedback for your work. But a compliment or a criticism or a critique is not feedback. And good feedback shall be designed to help the recipient do better, maybe think different, or behave more effectively.
So you talked about the annual review. I mean, where does the annual review fit into the feedback process?
It's a kind of more on a larger scale, right? Annual review, you probably have to. It is a more prepared thing, right? You come in with data, with results, what was achieved, what wasn't achieved, and then you give feedback on a larger scale, maybe on attitude or on the general feelings. Have you achieved your KPIs? You haven't achieved your KPIs, right? That's where it fits in. It is an opportunity to combine data with communication. But if you have somebody, for example, who is late every day for the last 10 days, are you going to wait for the annual review to tell him?
So one of the things that is often taught in leadership is one of the after action review.
Yeah.
So what happens is you sit down with an individual, you work through what the task is, the person does the task, and then you have an after action review. Is that something that you would recommend leaders embed and as be part of the feedback process?
Yes, because don't just give feedback and walk away, right? Check in regularly. I mean, it depends on what you're giving feedback on, right? Okay, we have some people commenting there. So I will reply later.
We'll bring it up in a moment. Don't worry, we'll bring it up next.
Yeah. So yeah, following up, it depends on what you're talking about, but don't just give feedback and walk away. Check in regularly and see how the employee is implementing it. For example, team, last week we talked about improving your time management. How are you feeling about the progress? I know if you are late or not, for example. I know what time you come in if you need to. But again, I want to give you the opportunity to speak and to reflect. And then you will say something, and then I will follow up with another question. What support do you need? So, as a manager, I'm giving feedback, but I'm coming across as somebody that wants to support you, not as somebody that is attacking you. Because there might be cases where maybe you have your child goes to school for the first time ever, kindergarten or preschool, and you need to stay a little bit longer when you're dropping them off because they want to adjust. But you didn't discuss this with the manager. So I think another thing, as a manager, before you offer solutions or create plans, you should know the real reason why something is happening or why it's not happening. And how do you find the real reason? Not the subliminal reason, the real reason. You ask questions, so you have discussions, and if you need, you might look at data as well.
So we've had the comment from Neville, who's a past person who's also been on this podcast, and he says, "Imagine feedback from a manager daily. Would you call it feedback?"
Yeah, we'll probably call it micromanagement.
Yeah.
Especially if it's on the same topic. We are reconnecting.
We are.
So, yeah. So imagine feedback from a manager daily. Would you call it feedback? No, as I said, if it wasn't heard, I would probably call it micromanagement, right? And especially if it's on the same topic. I mean, yes, if you look, it's like having a child. Again, I'm giving real life examples. But if you tell your kid every day to eat, they will end up not eating because you'll make them tired of the same things. So you need to give feedback. If needed, create next steps and check-ins. And sometimes you're checking in without the person knowing, but you will need, I suggest, giving people space to perform.
And
so I will not call it feedback if it's daily.
Okay, it's interesting that Neville's come back and said it's not micro. No, it's not micromanagement. Interesting comment.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it is subjective. It is very subjective because we need to look at them. Yeah, it is subjective because we need to look at the cases. You might have an employee that are new, that he or she is new, and they need to get feedback daily. So it is very subjective. The question is very subjective. And if you feel like the employee needs every day to get feedback because he or she is a bit slow maybe in understanding things, or maybe they need more support, maybe they need more training, maybe they need that encouragement, so maybe you can do it daily.
Or
But
maybe
usually,
or you have a buddy
yeah,
system where you get a fellow employee that can, so you've got something peer to peer rather than horizontal rather
yes,
than vertical.
yes, we have used buddy system and job shadowing. That could be another effective. But you see, what sometimes is not about, what Neville says is interesting, but sometimes is not about the action, is about the way you deliver the feedback that's important. Sometimes it's not the intensity of the feedback, is the way that you deliver the feedback. Because if you deliver feedback in a very empathetic way, if you deliver feedback in a way that encourages growth, people will start to liking it and they will ask for more. So I think the way you communicate it, the way you phrase it, your empathy, your tone of voice, your tonality, your body language, your words, your facial expressions play an important role. Not necessarily how often you do it.
And this is the thing, isn't it, about leadership, which is it's like walking on a tightrope. And the difference between different leadership styles, between am I being directive or am I delegating, or what leadership style is right. And the thing about us is that we're human, and quite often we get it wrong, and there's nothing wrong in that.
Leadership nowadays, I believe, is very situational. So the way maybe you manage one person is totally different the way you lead others, right? So there could be some crisis moments that you need to be more directive. There could be other tasks and other moments where you can be more democratic and let people decide, let people, make the decision and decide the next steps. even if you know that they might mess things up. If you have some tasks that the risk of the task, if they do it wrong, is not so high, I suggest let them perform, let them do what they are going to do, and then check it and give them feedback. And even if they mess up, it's not a big deal. Let's do it again. So I think when it comes to delegation and management style and leadership style, it's good as a manager, as a leader, to understand the level of risk and the tasks that you're delegating. Sometimes I delegate some tasks and I know they're not going to do it as good as me or as fast as me, but the only way they are going to learn is by practice. And if they don't practice and they don't mess up, they're never going to learn.
It's an amazing subject, something that I think we can all learn from, and thank you, Neville, for the debate. Evan, where can we find you?
Okay, so you can find me on LinkedIn. It's my favorite social media platform. If you type my name, yes, and offline, you can find me in Germany, North Germany, Hamburg. But most likely, you're going to find me on LinkedIn. So drop me a message, and happy to connect.
And thank you so much for coming on and talking about it. It's a fascinating subject, something that I think we can all learn from. And I'm learning about leadership every single day.
Hey, Tim, if I can say last, maybe word, but that's the mindset. Leadership, it's a never-ending process, and I think somebody that says I know it all, they already know nothing, right? It's the mindset, and I think, feedback, it's not just a transaction; it's deeply psychological. So the way it is given, it can trigger defensiveness or openness, right? So if it's framed in a constructive, non-threatening way, it can lead to real sustained transformation and improvement.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about it. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.